There are Russians somewhere setting up these illegal websites with like 2 girls in bikinis wrestling in mud or something, and people are gambling on that.
I never set up the YieldSec and then the GCI platform to help regulators and governments combat illegal gambling. The sky is definitely falling. We can make it stop.
How do you know that it's human trafficking and they're not just like paying their people to do like these humiliating things for money?
The human trafficking farms in Cambodia, in Myanmar, in Russia have been uncovered by law enforcement. They had a bucket to crap and piss in, and then they were basically told you will do these things during the day. We should all be offended that these people are taking billions of dollars a year from our societies, billions of dollars a year from our children's futures. They're having a wonderful lifestyle, it seems like, promoting this illegal gambling content. But again, illegal gambling came for their soul, and it kind of owns it now, doesn't it?
So a lot of people, they might think, okay, illegal gambling, whatever, but how does this affect me? I think like 90% of people I know personally are streaming movies. They're pirating movies illegally. They're like jaywalking illegally. It's technically illegal, but no one really cares. How does gambling change? If you put 100 Bitcoin, $100 worth of Bitcoin into some online casino, how does it affect them?
Very good question. The point here is we've got normalization. People are just finding this stuff in the wild out there on the internet, and they assume, well, what difference does it make? Okay, those are great odds. That's a great opportunity on that particular casino game, on that particular sports bet that I want to place. Who am I harming if I place this bet? The answer is you are harming yourself. That's what this comes down to. If you place bets with unregulated gambling companies, how do you know that the games are fair? How do you know that the roulette, when it came round to spin and that roulette wheel spun, when it lands on number 36, was that the number that it would have landed on randomly? Or was that the number they chose to put it on because it's the number you did not bet on? When something happens in a soccer match, for example, did you place your bet correctly for them to be able to settle it and give you your money back? Now, unregulated gambling gets accused of lots of things. It's from criminal organizations. Transnational criminal organizations are the main people behind unregulated online gambling. There are also lots of people who have licensing somewhere, like Malta or Curacao or Anjouan Island in the Comoros Islands. And they basically say, well, we're regulated somewhere and we're going to offer you gambling in Sweden and the United Kingdom. But they're not legally allowed to. But you want to use them because they're offering you more bonuses, or they're offering you no KYC, know your customer conditions, or they're offering you gambling as an underage person. So who am I harming? Again, you're harming yourself. This is from people who don't care about being regulated. They don't care about needing to be compliant. They actively look to offer you gambling as a person and an organization that is not licensed or regulated or checked or vetted or audited. They want to make sure that they're not doing those things because somewhere something smells wrong here, doesn't it? Something's not correct in the way that they offer their services because they don't look to be regulated. They're actively trying to avoid regulation and any kind of oversight, anyone looking at what they're up to. So these are people who are trying to bring you unfair, unsafe, ridiculous products at ridiculous prices that all sound too good to be true. And the answer is in what I just said. They sound too good to be true because they are too good to be true. Let's take an analogy into illegal streaming. So illegal streaming is sponsored by which industry? Illegal gambling is the biggest kind of beneficiary to illegal streaming. So illegal gambling sponsors all kinds of illegal streaming. Illegal streaming of sports events, most obviously, as well as the new episode of House of the Dragon, as well as loads of movies and TV shows, because they know that they can get a customer there who has already bought into this idea. What's wrong with it? It's fair. It's normal. Exactly like your question. Everybody's doing it. It's become normalized, but that doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean it's right for society, but most of all, it's not right for you as an individual. So with illegal streaming, you think that you're getting something for nothing. You're taking account of a product that you're getting for free. I didn't need to pay HBO. I didn't need to pay ESPN. I didn't need to pay Paramount Plus. I don't need to pay Netflix. I don't need to pay for any of these things, and I get that content for free. In any situation online, when you can't work out how the people who bring you that product are making money, who is the product in that situation?
Well, to be fair, there's advertisements. They make money off ad revenue. Maybe they sell your IP address or something, but like...
Exactly. So the product is then you, isn't it, Ivan? You are the product because you're the one that's basically having your data sold. You're the one that's having specific advertising served to you.
But I think it would be unfair to say that the average person doesn't care about any of that. Like Facebook is selling your data, Spotify is selling your data, Apple's pretending not to sell your data, they're selling your data. The government is oftentimes leaking your data. Like, I don't know if the data is enough to make people not want to do illegal stuff, right?
It's not that it's about illegal stuff. If you look at illegal streaming as a business model, okay, what they're doing to you is having a 90-minute for a soccer game, for example, or a 90-minute movie. They have a window into your digital soul for 90 minutes, and you gave them access. It's like leaving your front door open and saying, everybody come into my house, take what you want, look at what you want, fit me up for when you next want to burgle me, kind of thing, because that's what they are looking to do. So giving somebody that digital window into your soul for 90 minutes, they can get a lot of things from you and leave a lot of things behind. Malware, spyware, keystroke logging software. So the next time you go onto your bank account and then somebody all of a sudden cleans out all the money, how did you become a victim of crime? You gave it to them. You gave them access to that stuff. So all of that data being sold about you, they are using data in ways that people like Netflix, Amazon, Spotify would not use data. They're not looking to steal from you. They're looking to sell you things, okay? So they want data about, well, what are they into? Do they like this type of bread or that type of orange juice? They want to get data on you to sell you more things. Illegal streaming and illegal gambling want to get data on you to steal from you. That's basically it.
I see the difference now. What about, like, so you're playing a big role in preventing illegal gambling. How exactly does that work? I mean, you and I having a conversation on this podcast, it's not exactly going to make one of these gambling companies say, oh shoot, maybe I should not do this anymore. What exactly are you doing to change this?
So raising awareness and being able to say, we're aware that this stuff exists. We're aware that the sky is falling. I never set up the YieldSec and then the GCI platform to help regulators and governments combat illegal gambling. I never set that thing up just for the awareness of the sky is falling, okay? The sky is definitely falling. We can make it stop. Data leads to better intelligence and decisions. If you don't have an awareness of how visible the marketplace is, you miss lots of things. So legal gambling, the bit you can see. So I often liken this to an iceberg, basically. The piece at the top, the bright white shining cap of the iceberg, everybody can see it. Everybody knows it's there. Every ship can try and steer around it, okay? That's the visible risk. I do not want to go into that iceberg. So you try and go around it. The problem with unregulated illegal gambling is this. It's the invisible risk, the part that's below the waterline. And the problem we've had as an industry globally here, illegal gambling is like the sea of criminality around that visible risk that we can see. So we look at legal gambling and we want to have an age limit. You must be 18 or 21 years old. We want to restrict children from ever using these products. We want to make sure that vulnerable people are also excluded, self-excluded gamblers. I have a problem. I don't want to gamble anymore. Stop me gambling. But that only stops you with most of the schemes in any country on earth. Most of those self-excluding from gambling schemes stop you from gambling only with legal, licensed, compliant companies. What about the other stuff that's out there in that sea of criminality online? So that invisible risk is now becoming a structural risk, not just to the players, not just to the children, not just to the society. It's also becoming a structural risk to our economies. So the digital economy is what pays for most things in most countries nowadays. You look at a country like the Philippines, where we've been working for years. In the Philippines, they raise money in taxes from online gaming. If they don't collect that tax from online gaming, certain things won't be paid for. Fundamental things like education and road building and flood defenses. Now, in a country like the United Kingdom, you're running at a marketplace there that's on the other side of the spectrum. They have a 91% legal market share. So regulated brands, 2,500 of them, are running the marketplace. Illegal brands have managed to get themselves up to 9% share in a marketplace that 6 years ago had nothing, no share of illegal gambling whatsoever. And they've done that by targeting two communities, children and self-excluded customers. And they realized there was so much money in just those two vulnerable audiences, one of whom should be fundamentally excluded, children, the other of whom have been told they've been excluded because they stopped themselves from gambling with legal companies. And crime came looking to exploit those audiences. Now they've got themselves to near enough double-digit percentage in one of the world's most lucrative marketplaces for online gaming. The United Kingdom is a marketplace where on a per capita level, people are spending hundreds of pounds a year on gambling, okay? So when you look at that audience and now you've got yourself to a near double-digit position as criminal organizations, it's not going to stop there. They will metastasize into the rest of the ecosystem and now start getting normal customers to try and migrate over. Because what does crime do when it makes money? More crime.
What kind of crime are the people behind illegal gambling doing, other than illegal gambling, of course?
It's a very interesting question. And again, transnational criminal organizations tend to basically look for those vertical benefits. So if I'm running an illegal casino, okay, I will use things like live dealer, live human beings to play the products, live dealer casino. So that's a man or a woman spinning a roulette wheel, dealing cards at blackjack, for example. I will then be into human trafficking as well, okay? Because I want to own those people and make sure they sit in a warehouse and do cam girling for me and they do casino dealing for me. So you will find a whole bunch of links between illegal online gaming and other forms of crime. So the crime that's moving here is basically, I've got money that's coming in from drug trafficking. I can set up a studio for a live dealer casino. I can then put that money into owning hundreds of URLs to target certain marketplaces around the world for casinos, sports betting, etc. That money just keeps moving through the system. And the whole point of what these organizations want is to get that money to a legitimate rule of law based system where I can now start moving that money into bank accounts. I can now start buying properties, etc. So there is a triangulation and separation piece of this that we encounter with our work, that what you're looking at here is basically how crime makes money, how crime banks its money, and how crime buys assets with its money and uses those assets for other things. So the links between other forms of crime we saw from work we did with Bellingcat, an investigative journalism outfit. Bellingcat and us were partnered on a project where we were looking at what happened during the pandemic and how crime changed gaming during the pandemic and also illegal streaming too. There was a point in the pandemic where all sports was cancelled. So professional sports have been entirely cancelled because nobody could go out with the COVID-19 restrictions.
Right.
Both forms of gambling, regulated and unregulated, were kind of decimated at that point because they were going, well, if we don't have sports and we can't offer sports betting, how do we get the cheapest way to acquire customers to get those customers to come into our website, our app, and then get cross-sold into other things like casino, poker, and other games. So sports is always the battering ram. It's always the driver of how you get customers there for gambling as well as for TV content like Sky and ESPN. You get people there with sports, you get them to cross-sell into other things from sports. So gambling's definitely been used in that way. During the pandemic, we cancelled all the sports. What happened then? Illegal gambling went to illegal streaming and said, we need some kind of content. Is that something you could help us with? Illegal streaming looked at it and went, well, we want to share in that illegal gambling money. So yeah, let's think hard about this. And what they came up with was really dangerous, and it's changed the nature of gambling online now. They came up with unprofessional sports events. So let's just look at two guys going at it head-to-head, boxing in a car park. Let's just look at 14-year-old girls basketball from Ukraine. Let's look at snail racing from Thailand. And
is this like Polymarket kind of stuff?
But this is before Polymarket. Okay, this is before they hit the market, but it's kind of involved in the evolution of how Polymarket came around. So I can basically take any form of sports content. I can now just put some guys in a stadium in India or Pakistan during the pandemic. This was happening. And I can put England on their shirt and India on their shirt and get them to play a cricket match. Okay. They're not the English and Indian teams, but people were finding it on social media, finding it funny, and then converting as traffic through to the illegal gambling websites. Illegal gambling didn't get that product to basically say we want to make a lot of money on the betting on this stuff. But we are able to now cross-sell you into the thing that we always have 24/7, regardless of a pandemic. We have casinos. And that's where we know we can make 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% margin out of you. Whereas on sports, nobody in the world, regulated or unregulated, is making more than 10% margin on those kind of products. Okay. So overall, the product you want everybody in as a gambling company is casino, legal or illegal. The product that everybody wants you to be in from an unregulated, illegal gambling side of things is casino too. So they used these unofficial amateur sports events to get people there. What we found was there were sports betting farms in Russia, predominantly, and Eastern Europe that were producing this content. And it could be anything from foosball to paddle to tennis to soccer, the whole thing. I mean, there's a whole bunch of illegal World Cup versions of this happening right now as well. So regardless of what happens today in Brazil versus Norway, there'll be an illegal streaming version of it too, which will be driving a whole bunch of illegal gambling. And there'll be a girls version and a boys version and a men's version and a women's version. And it just, the variety of stuff that they offer is crazy. But this really changed the nature of gambling. So when the industry was at an inflection point, when we had no professional sports, illegal gambling was the innovator that came up with this devious plan to basically go, let's show them amateur sports. We'll make this stuff up. And now we've got our own 24/7, 365 days a year content that we can push to people. So regardless of what you try and do to illegal gambling, they've got this niche in this amateur sports stuff that people do find engaging on social media, and people do find it funny, interesting, challenging. Let's click it. And it's that click through that's provided them with one of the biggest forms of clickbait content to get people to go there. That, alongside the other trick that illegal gambling worked out really well, just put your logo on everything. Put your logo on porn. Put your logo on kids content, put your logo on celebrity content, put your logo on any form of content, because every form of content converts, especially on social media platforms. And that's what illegal gambling worked out really well during the pandemic. So they got a window into people's souls through the illegal streaming. They understood a lot about audience data, because illegal gambling and illegal streaming are not interested in just being criminal enterprises anymore. They are also interested in being these long-term play businesses that take account of audience data and then the control of that audience data, in the same way that a Meta is, in the same way that a social media platform would be. These guys are also interested in it in that way, because it's not just about selling you the immediate illegal gambling product. It's about selling you stuff for the future too.
So there are Russians somewhere setting up these illegal websites with like two girls in bikinis wrestling in mud or something, and people are gambling on that.
So I wouldn't just say it's Russians, just to be clear. There's lots of people involved in this, okay? So crime finds ways into all kinds of societies and all kinds of communities. There is a massive predominance of this stuff in Eastern Europe and Russia, it has to be said. Partly probably because of the sanctions that have been imposed against Russia since the Ukraine conflict, and also because they have a lot less restrictions on how that activity is governed in those societies. So I'd say it's not just there, but there is definitely a piece here where there is a supply chain behind all forms of gambling online. There is definitely a developed supply chain behind the criminality involved in the unregulated sector. So putting a bunch of people in a studio, having human slaves effectively to run warehousing, where you can then say you live, eat, sleep here, and you film a bunch of content here. Some of that will be things like the chat and camgirl content. Some of it will be dealing live dealer casino. So you're basically spinning roulette wheels and dealing cards at blackjack. And some of it will be other forms where you have to put a soccer strip on and play football for the afternoon for 90 minutes and watch people bet on that game.
How do you know that it's human trafficking and they're not just like paying their people to do like these humiliating things for money?
I'm sure there's payment of it. There's a part of this which is payment, and there's definitely a part of this which is human trafficking. You don't need to take our word for that. Don't need to take my word for that. Just look at the news in this area, okay? So human trafficking farms in Cambodia, in Myanmar, in Russia have been uncovered by law enforcement, and they found hundreds of people in those facilities, all of whom basically had a bunk bed. They always make sure they sleep on top of the other. They had a bucket to crap and piss in, and then they were basically told you will do these things during the day. But they were made sure that those people were online for hours, whether it's running things like pig butchering, the kind of romance scams from Myanmar, and then being able to also do illegal gambling. But wherever you found any of those facilities closed down, there are three things that pop up: romance scams, financial scams, illegal gambling, always. The one that sometimes is there is the pornography content and production of camgirls and chat facilities.
Interesting. Are you able to disclose some of these illegal companies that are well known? Because I think I can, by what you're saying, I can recognize some of the companies you're talking about. So
I never talk about illegal gambling brands because it gives them the legitimacy of this guy who is a certain person who talks about this stuff a lot. I created my kind of focus here by basically saying I will never give them the oxygen of marketing. Me saying their name, me talking about those brands will be clipped and used in some way to basically give them publicity. my words can then be twisted against me, so that instead of saying that this is one of the worst things we're finding in our digital economies, one of the worst things we're finding in our digital societies, I am somehow an ambassador for these people, and I am never willing to be that. So I don't talk about these brands because how it will be misused and weaponized by them. The other part of this is when we talk about the fact that unregulated gambling is a fact. Unregulated gambling is taking money from our commerce, community, and consumers. Unregulated gambling is a form of crime that these people came to steal from us. And we should all feel that sting. I get offended if somebody steals my napkin, okay? We should all be offended that these people are taking billions of dollars a year from our societies, billions of dollars a year from our children's futures, from things like education that could be paid for, billions of dollars a year from our healthcare. More cancer machines and hospitals are always useful. And that tax doesn't come in, and that will hurt our societies, okay? What's not paid for today in development terms is a lack of facilities for us in the future. That's a problem. So I never talk about these companies, but I'm sure everybody listening can guess who those companies are, okay? They're the people who are always available, always offering you too good to be true gambling, and that's for a reason. It is too good to be true. It's because it's a lie. It's because it is there to steal from you as consumers. That's why it's there.
Damn. And I'm curious, what is the work you're doing with governments to prohibit this?
The work we do is not to prohibit. So we're not the police here, okay? So I've likened this to being like Batman. We can give people lots of data. We're like the Batman cave computers. We're the machine in the background collecting all the intelligence and data from your marketplace, okay? So every marketplace in the world is subtly different and can be vastly different too. Look at the example I gave about the United Kingdom running at 91% regulated versus 9% unregulated. And then let's take a marketplace like any region in the world right now. North America, 24% regulated versus 76% unregulated. If you look at the global split, 78% unregulated versus 22% regulated. Europe, 77% unregulated versus 23% regulated. We can look at Africa right now, which is running at 78-22 as well. So there's a piece of this which is every society in the world can benefit from this. They can get control of their gaming. They can get control of that river of money that comes through gambling, the third largest economic flow on earth. Mm-hmm. And they're not doing it and not achieving it. So what governments need to achieve here is have the intelligence for the marketplace awareness, have the ability to control the mechanics of the marketplace, how people find the gambling, how people engage with the gambling. When you then have legal gambling companies, you need to audit and have transaction monitoring across how many people place deposits, how many people place bets, how many times do they place them, how much tax is due on those things, what kind of treatment do I give to the betting that's been placed there, and making sure that the marketplace works effectively. So there are a huge number of stakeholders within each community. You're looking at people who provide products, people who provide payments, people who provide the advertising, people who provide the legal services behind this, all of the streaming content. So, and all of the products that provide the gamification of everything that's taking place on the internet right now. So as a casino owner, I don't have the casino games. They came from somebody else. I don't have the sports betting events. They're owned by other people like FIFA and UEFA and the football leagues and teams. I need to offer things. So there's a whole bunch of partnerships within the ecosystems which exist legally and legitimately on the legal side of the industry, and they exist illegitimately on the other side of the fence, on the unregulated side that they're being stolen from. So the number of stakeholders we work with is huge and vast here. And for governments and regulators, we help them control and channelize their marketplaces to achieve certainty. All marketplaces are in a state of chaos right now, all online gambling marketplaces. So even in a marketplace like the United Kingdom, where you have that not even double digit controlled by crime yet, it's still managed to double every year for the last 5 years. So it's showing you how crime has placed targets on certain economies to say, we want a share of those customers. We want a share of that audience. We want to dominate that product area in this marketplace. And they're achieving that in many places. So the fight back here is have the right intelligence and data to make the right decisions. Because fundamentally, this comes down to one goal for me. All the time I've been in this business, if you run this business right, there is a substantial benefit that comes to commerce, community, and consumers. I can't see anywhere in the world that is dealing with the problems that come, the consequences of crime effectively enough. We are one part of that is to help our clients achieve certainty in these marketplaces and control this business so it can be run right.
Are these gambling companies also sponsoring influencers?
Really good question. So the whole influencer area, lots of societies in the world have criminalized influencers for promoting unregulated, unlicensed gambling. Okay?
I have a lot of friends that have done that.
Yeah. So there's a problem here, which is you're taking a group of young people who found a way to make money from digital economies, being an influencer. Okay. Being an influencer is not an easy job. Okay. You need to have a particular thing. You need to have a niche that you're talking about. You need to have an audience that you find you appealing and want to watch your content. And you need to understand how there's a complex ecosystem of how your content and personality is distributed online with a whole bunch of revenue share out to platforms like YouTube, for example, and TikTok. So they take a lot more of the money than most influencers end up with. Criminalizing influencers then to say, well, you mentioned XYZ illegal gambling company, and now we're going to put you in jail and fine you. Is that going to help or not? The problem here, again, is illegal gambling, and crime finds ways to exploit and corrupt things. So crime found a way to everybody online, every social media influencer in the world. So I'm running a social media channel talking about my favorite Indian food recipes. I'm running a social media channel talking about my favorite walks in the park, whatever it happens to be. Once crime sees that you've got 500 followers, 5,000 followers, okay, that's an interesting audience. Are they mainly men? Are they men who are of a certain age, who are interested in sports? Great. We're going to offer you illegal gambling revenue share now. We're going to offer you tribute payments for every customer you send us. We'll offer you payments for every click-through. We'll even offer you, if you're popular enough, just money for mentioning our name. We don't even need you to have performance-based metrics. Just mention our name a lot. Talk about our name a lot. There's a whole scandal going on in the hip-hop community at the moment because Charlemagne the God, one of the influencers, he basically has been mentioning one illegal gambling brand a hell of a lot recently. So people have kind of said, is that because you may be involved in them and you're making a lot of money from them? So there's a huge scandal going on right there at the moment. I was just watching a podcast about that earlier today, actually. So there's a piece of this which is, should they be criminalized? Are they the real enemy here? Are they the real problem, the influencers? I don't think they are. It's just crime again. This is another consequence of crime. Now, let's take an example of what can go badly wrong. If, as a society, you decide we're going to pass a law against influencers, we're going to criminalize them and put them in jail. Brazil tried to do this a couple of years ago. So Brazil brought in legal gambling from January the 1st, 2025. Okay? And they did really well in the first few months. Okay, 55% legal market share. 45% unregulated market share. We did some reporting at the time and we said that, okay, it's great. It's a really good start. One of the best in online gaming history to get that level of control. But the problem is what happened between Q1 2025 and Q2 2025. Q2, it went the other way. 55% illegal control, 45% illegal control. We have never seen a 10% shift like that from one 3-month period to the next. Why? Because they thought we've done really well here. Let's put the tax up. Let's pass a bunch of laws saying that influencers can't promote any other brands than legal ones and all this kind of stuff. So they started to make lots of changes or talking about those changes. And even that, just talking about those changes led to crime kind of coming back with a vengeance. So crime is now at a position where it's only 60% at the end of last year, 60% criminal control, 40% legal control. So it completely changed the board. So what they started with great intentions, a whole bunch of research, Brazil being one of the last big population online gaming marketplaces in the world to actually regulate. They waited like a full 3 decades to get some laws in there. So finally they got their laws in and again, crime wins very quickly, takes control. Influencers were one of those battles. So Brazilian society and law said, we're going to criminalize any influencers promoting illegal gambling brands. And in particular, they went after, how it appeared at least, they went after attractive women. So attractive women who had makeup blogs and the rest of it had started promoting illegal gambling companies. Why? Why would they switch from promoting makeup and beauty tips and recipes and I look nice in a bikini? Why would they switch to illegal gambling? Because of the money, the amount of money these people
so much money to promote this stuff in the past too.
Exactly. So we were seeing chat forums showing things like $10,000 a day from illegal gambling companies to some of these Brazilian influencers. What did illegal gambling do then when the influencers turned around and went, I can't do this anymore, I'm going to go to jail, okay? Illegal gambling has an answer, which is usually funded by their criminal income. Illegal gambling took some of those people, not all, some, particularly the very attractive women. took them to Miami and Los Angeles, put them in Airbnb, cribs type homes, and said, you do your influencing content from here from now on, okay? Don't worry about the Brazilian police because they ain't coming to Miami to arrest you. You do all your content from here and we'll pay for everything, okay? And you mention our brand even more now because you work for us. That's it. So they took a bunch of influencers over to Miami and Los Angeles, put them online, gave them this great looking content in these great looking homes with great looking clothes and everything else. And it all looks too good to be true. And it kind of was. Those people have been completely exploited by crime. They can now not go back to their homes in Brazil because they may go to jail, but they're having a wonderful lifestyle, it seems like, promoting this illegal gambling content. But again, illegal gambling came for their soul and it kind of owns it now, doesn't it? So there's a piece of this which is going after the influencers. They almost are a victimized community in this, okay? Crime comes looking for them because it wants to exploit them. The same way it wants to exploit audiences, children, self-excluded customers, and just the average guy, girl in any society. We want your money. That's what they want. What they want from influencers is the money that influencers can make them. That's all that they want from them. The day you stop sending them audience and converting is the day that they are no longer paying for you to live in some Airbnb place in Miami. They have not got your back. They just want your bank. That's it.
Damn. Yeah, that's pretty tough. That's pretty tough. And are you able to disclose some of the partners or countries or governments that you're working with?
We never talk about our clients apart from the ones who let us talk about them. So you can see on our website for GCI, we work with a number of American states. We work with a number of countries around the world, but we don't talk about any of the work we do unless our clients want us to talk about it. So anything that people want to see about our public work, it's available on our website. It's available on our press pages and news pages.
What are some of the public companies that allow you to speak about the work that you do for them?
So we don't work for any companies directly in GCI. We work for governments and regulators and trade associations. So we work with the European Casino Association, which represents hundreds of operators. We work with Campaign for Fairer Gambling, which is a mission campaign run by Derek Webb. Derek Webb is looking to change how online gaming marketplaces are run and change how they're regulated. This should be for the benefit of societies and for protected, safe consumers is what he's looking to achieve, okay? It's all in the name, the Campaign for Fairer Gambling. So we've worked with Derek for years and we love his mission there, which is basically very similar to my own. This business can produce substantial benefit when it's run correctly. The problem is it's hardly ever run correctly or run right. There are a whole bunch of changes that need to be made there, and it's incumbent upon societies and us as individuals and voters to make sure that we're voting for success and control in this area. When you understand that this is the third largest economic flow on earth, all of those trillions of dollars flowing through our interest, demand, and desire for online sports betting, online casinos, online games. This is a piece where basically we're getting into consumers love this content. Demand is never the problem here, okay? Controlling the demand is the problem.
At what point is it too much? Because I don't really think gambling as a whole can be seen per se as like a good for society. I mean, yeah, there's taxes that come out of it, but I don't want like every other person to be sports betting. And I feel like more and more, especially with my generation, so many people are just like spending $500 a month or $100 a month on gambling. And I'm just looking at them like, dude, you're broke. What are you doing? You're wasting your time. You're wasting your money. At what point is it too much?
Ivan, it's a really good question, and it's well motivated as well. I look at this as a 52-year-old man looking at this thinking, okay, we've gone from a point where maybe 10% of every population in any society had a propensity to gamble. They had a willingness to gamble, okay? That's what propensity means. If you look at it now, 25% of any population in any society are gambling, okay? Look at some nations like Iceland, and more than 60% of the population are regularly gambling. So there is a piece here, which is the gamification of everything, as we call it, has been happening to society, particularly since the pandemic. So gamification methods are available in everything, even how we open accounts on social media, for example. There's a gamified process to get us through those things. So everybody in the world has looked at gambling and gamified methods and said, okay, there's some of the best things. Give people a game to play and they'll go through those stages. They'll go through a sale. They'll go through an account registration. They'll sign up for life insurance. Make it gamified. Crime also has noticed that as the obvious thing here. In terms of audiences and looking at this as a moral issue, I take the morality out of this by basically saying, look, everybody in the world can dislike some gambling. We can all dislike this as a moral issue and say that, oh, it's terrible, it's bad for people, it's bad for society, it's bad for you as an individual. Disliking it does not mean that the marketplace disappears, however. Okay, the marketplace is there. You can clearly see from our monitoring and surveillance of marketplaces anonymously, the audience is engaging with this stuff whether we like it or not. Okay, that money is being made. Right now, most of the money being made is being made by crime that brought it to you, because they also saw that regardless of what we might say publicly, what we do privately is gamble a lot. So societies are doing this stuff anyway. So the piece here is people are doing it, and it needs to be controlled, to be compliant, to be providing benefit for us. Okay, that's what I'm focused on here. Take the morality out of the discussion, because regardless of what we might like to say, my ex-mother-in-law, for example, would never talk about my career apart from, oh, it's disgusting. It's so terrible what you do offering people gambling. I used to be an operator. I used to sell people gambling. Okay. I don't see that there's anything wrong in it so long as that person doesn't have a problem. And if they do have a problem, there should be a self-exclusion method and a way of containing their behavior here. Children should always be excluded from gambling because they don't have the ability to make the right decisions about, well, is this a good use of my money? Do I need money to buy food, or should I use money on gambling instead? That's the point here. Make logical decisions. I see what I did as a logical decision when I was faced with the reality of what was going on in the marketplace. I was in an industry where I had ignored that crime was even present, like everybody else had ignored it, because it was the invisible part of the iceberg. Once I realized through various experiences I had, being offered jobs, being offered deals with people, I started to ask the question, who are these people? Why are they offering me 3 times what a legal license company is offering me to run their business for them? It's because they're crooks. Okay? That's why they're offering me that money. So I left way more money on the table to say, I'm not willing to be counted as a person who makes their money from crime. I want to be a person that benefits the society. So looking at this, you need to look at it as, how do we generate that benefit? How do we control our digital economies? And what we're showing you here is purely one of the most lucrative industries on earth, okay? The gambling industry. But what's going on with the development of what we used to call black marketplaces? Black marketplace is not distinct or separate from the real marketplace, the one that consumers take part in. It is the marketplace that consumers are taking part in. So what we have is a marketplace for online gambling in America, in Great Britain, in Germany, in Thailand. That marketplace has legitimate, licensed legal actors in it, and it has illegitimate, unlicensed criminal actors in it. We need to make sure that we enforce against those people and keep them removed from the marketplace, because the loss for society and for individuals is much greater when those people are there. So looking after this gambling business it's a window into how we look after our societies generally. So people often look at this as, you can judge a civilized society by how well it treats its prisoners. You can judge a civilized economy by how well it treats its gambling. How does it look at, I want the benefit from this, and how well does it keep crime out of its marketplace? Because you can then take that across the economy generally. How much black market share do we have in anything we're selling? Consumer goods, insurance, life insurance, whatever it happens to be. Look at it that way. You want civilized commercial control of your economic marketplaces, particularly online. Allowing crime to enter them means that you're allowing people to come into your home and take and steal your things.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see your point now. What are some of the celebrities and companies that are still promoting illegal gambling? Is it like a national thing where like the biggest celebrities are doing this?
So celebrities all have managers and agents, and those celebrity managers and agents always want to make money from those celebrities. So if somebody comes in and says, I'm willing to offer you $1 million a year to promote this company, they probably aren't asking the question, is it legal? Is it illegal? At some point in the contract process, they will get to that discussion. Is this legal or illegal? Look at any sports personality, any athlete. Not all of us can go on once we've been in professional sports to then become the biggest anchor for news on sports in that country and host ESPN, for example. So what about all the athletes who don't become the host of ESPN? What about all the athletes who don't get to be like Joe Rogan and comment on UFC? What about all those people? Them being offered $10,000 for a year by some gaming company based in some offshore island, sounds really attractive. It's a lot of money coming in immediately. I could just have to have my picture taken and wear my Super Bowl ring, and they give me the money kind of thing. So I understand why lots of people are attracted by this stuff. I understand why lots of people engage with it. It's because they're giving you money is why. Okay. Everybody wants to make some cash. And this is an interesting way to make it when illegal gambling is just throwing money at you as a celebrity. Okay. So there are many people who got involved in this, whether they liked it or not. Just one example of this, look at FC Barcelona. FC Barcelona, one of the biggest, most known football teams in the world, happily represents an illegal gambling company in most jurisdictions on earth. They do have a couple of licenses in some jurisdictions. I'm not willing to say what their name is, obviously, but that business that sponsors FC Barcelona is mainly illegal in most marketplaces that it is present and taking money from. So they don't seem to have a problem with that, and FC Barcelona will happily bat back any of the suggestions that it's an illegal business. They just move the discussion on. And the same thing's been happening generally with sports globally. Sports is taking a lot of money from illegal gambling, either at the athlete level, at the team sponsorship level, even often at the league and championship sponsorship level, and they don't want to talk about it. So it's a big problem that's happening in sports generally right now. And again, it's crime corrupting these conversations, crime corrupting these commercial networks between people, because it's basically bringing in so much money. I did again, part of the work we did with Bellingcat on sports betting farms. It was showing you, there's a podcast by Search Party. And a guy called Sam Ellis was hosting that. And he was saying to me, look, sports is basically being corrupted by illegal gambling all around the world. And it's corrupting leagues, it's corrupting teams, it's corrupting individual athletes. And I said, the real trick that crime has pulled here is that they've produced all this fake sports content, amateur sports content, whatever you want to call it. But it's produced only for the benefit of gambling and converting audiences from. Crime has come full circle on this to kind of go, look, we know that when we didn't have sports during the pandemic, we came up with our own, and we've managed to seduce and bewitch you with this content. They kind of have started bringing you all this content and saying, look, we've convinced you of something here, which is it's not even sports. We just made it all up. And still the audiences came, still the audiences clicked, still the audiences converted, and still the audiences left their cash behind. And it's almost, when I look at it like this, from the high level that we see from that audience data, this is crime laughing at all of us, the way it's controlling sports, the way it's controlling celebrity culture, the way it's controlling influencers. Greatest trick the devil ever pulled, as Baudelaire said, was basically to convince everybody it didn't exist. And that's kind of what crime's done here. It's in the ecosystem. It's in our commercial decisions. It's in our audience behavior. But we don't really acknowledge it's there because, as you said, Ivan, it's just normal. Everybody's doing it.
And if it's headquartered in like Moscow or in, somewhere in Asia where there's not much, regulation, I mean, it could be banned in the US. I remember when I was in Miami, at our penthouse, there was some sort of wrestling game going on or something. I don't really pay attention to sports. I don't gamble, but literally everyone else, they just got a VPN and they went on a website and gambled like a small amount, like $500 or $1,000 or something. I feel like with the existence of VPNs and with the existence of social media, the only real way you can solve this illegal gambling issue is like the actual social media companies stepping in. Or, you could spread awareness all you want, but I feel like the average person, they will just never care enough. Even if you tell them it's rigged, they're just not going to care.
Okay, there's part of this which is audiences do care, okay? And everybody, regardless of what particular desire they have and demand they have for any sports event, any casino game, slot machine, whatever it happens to be, if you tell them they are being stolen from, you care, okay? Like I said, I care if somebody steals my napkin. I care if somebody takes my French fries. I care, okay? Everybody cares when their money's taken, okay? Everybody does. You just have to show them they're being stolen from. That's the point, okay? Now, going back to a couple of points you raised here, VPNs. So VPN use is a complete red herring, okay? So what we see on this, and again, let's look at what VPN is. VPN is telling people that you are in another place than you really are, okay? So that needs to add time, latency to your connection is what it's called technically, okay? Latency means time. Latency adds delays to what you're watching, what you're engaging with. So if I want to watch a Premier League soccer match illegally or a FIFA World Cup football match illegally via illegal streaming, and I'm using a VPN to do that, I will be delayed by minutes sometimes. Similarly, with online gaming content, the most popular forms of online gaming content are live online gaming content. Live dealer casino, live dealer blackjack, live dealer roulette, live sports betting. I can't place my bet on the thing I want to place it on if there is a delay from the latency that comes from a VPN. So you can open an account and put money in to an illegal gambling site offshore. You wanted to represent that you're not in America, for example, so you can use it. So you can put money in, but you can't place bets with that money. So consumers just find, oh, that was great, and now I'm screwed. Then when I now try and bet with it and I don't use the VPN, they won't accept my bet. That's a way that people use legal gambling sites in other countries. And they then tend to not do that again because basically can't get access to their money to bet with. So I may have been able to place my bet, my deposit and registration legally. I may have had to lie and say that, oh, yes, I live in Great Britain when I'm actually in the United States. But once I try and place bets with it, they won't happen. They will time out again and again and again. The worst consumer experience. Also, if you win money, having opened an account by illegitimately saying through using a VPN that I live in XYZ country and you don't happen to live there, you won't be able to refund any winnings either. Because that's when all the questions come from any gambling company, legal or illegal. Where do you live? What's your bank account? Who are you? Send us a picture of you and your ID. At the same time, like literally holding your passport by your face is how you'll get your money back from a legal gambling company. You won't get a refund. You won't get your cash out of your winnings from any of these companies. Okay, in that case. So the VPN use is just a red herring. It's a complete myth that stuff is stopping, is how people engage with illegal gambling content. Illegal gambling and illegal streaming content understood this really clearly. Okay. Years ago when the technology started to change and the audience tastes changed towards live gaming products. Because if you think about it, 20 years ago, we were all placing a bet before we went to the pub or bar to watch the NFL game, to watch a soccer game. We placed it before. The Rams are going to win. Arsenal's going to win. We placed it before we sat down to watch that game. Okay. Now we're all on our phones the entire time going, oh my God, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? How many yellow cards? How many red cards? Who's going to take the next corner? All that stuff is what's driving behavior now. So it's all live. Using a VPN kills that behavior because it adds latency, which means time, which means delay, which means you don't place your bets. Okay. Don't happen in time. So what's happening now? Illegal gambling and the criminality behind it understood. Give consumers the products they want in the clear, openly. Give them access to everything immediately on the open internet, through their social media, through links on WhatsApp and Telegram and Signal. Just give them the links out there and keep changing and updating those things all the time. So now you can access anything you want, anywhere you want, any time of day you want, and you do not use a VPN as part of the nature of the product. Do not create a barrier to entry by making sure that they have to go to X URL only. No, there are 5,000 URLs behind every legal gambling brand in the world, available everywhere all of the time. Those are look, some illegal gambling companies run mirror and redirect pages just to tell you what this domain is today. In certain marketplaces like Turkey, where they are regularly enforcing against a whole bunch of illegal URLs, the URLs are updated every few minutes during Premier League soccer games. Okay, so there is a constant running list. You just go to a WhatsApp account, you go to a Signal or Telegram account, you'll be told where the new one is. So there's a constant availability of this stuff. So the VPN thing is a myth. It's not what people are using because it will just kill the experience of what you want to gamble on.
Interesting. What do you think is going to look like in 10 years? The whole legal versus illegal gambling landscape.
That's an interesting one, and one that we've spent a lot of time on recently. It's the regulated, unregulated, unacknowledged as gambling piece. The gamification of everything has led to a fuel underneath the unacknowledged as gambling area. So right now, prediction market platforms are the hot thing in gaming, okay? But they're not really gambling because in America, they're seen as financial products. They're futures, derivatives, effectively. So I am betting on an outcome and event. I am not gambling, according to Kalshi and Polymarket, the two biggest brands in prediction markets. Those two brands are telling you, and they've got out of their way with their legal kind of justification to tell you that they are not gambling. They are trading products. You are a day trader of future events. The weather tomorrow, Bitcoin price, Barbara Streisand dying next week. All these things are their bread and butter, okay? And how do they make money out of you? Because that's a marketplace that's driven by people. It's driven by the audience. Okay, audience generated content is what any tech platform wants. Let them, the audience, do the work. So what Kalshi and Polymarket are doing is basically saying, well, you need to trade in and out of position. You need to know that when you say that Bitcoin's going to move in the next 60 days, what the price is going to be, you need to come back and trade in that position. You need to move in and out of it. Do you want to back it? Do you want to hedge it? Do you want to move your position? Fees and charges come with those changes of position, changes of trading position. The fees and charges are how those platforms make money. And when they're embedded in your social media feed and you've allowed all notifications, because, hey, if you don't allow notifications, maybe you lose money or you don't make as much as you should have because you need to keep trading your position. So you've created now this kind of, it's like the rat on crack approach to a product here, but officially in America, it's not gambling, it's trading. That product everywhere else in the world, in the other 194 countries in the world, everybody is having a problem with, because Kalshi and Polymarket have led to widespread lack of engagement with elections now. So in the recent Portuguese election earlier this year, there was a problem in the candidate had been backed to win, and it was being promoted as it's like a 99% certainty on Kalshi and Polymarket. So people were like, yeah, I can't be bothered to go and vote then. So one of the lowest voter turnouts in history because it was driven by that almost election voting poll score on Kalshi and Polymarket, which people have just started to accept. Again, the normalization of how quickly this tech-backed opinion, tech-backed marketing changes society's opinions. So when Kalshi and Polymarket are saying that guy's winning, forget it, I'm not going to vote. Okay. That's also driving kind of the outcomes in certain sports events, certain real world events. So when I can bet on how many bombs are going to drop in Tel Aviv from Iran, when I can bet on whether Maduro is going to be captured in the raid in Venezuela, and I'm betting on it as a Navy SEAL on the helicopter going to catch Maduro, which is actually what happened. That guy made $500,000 from it, is now being investigated for insider trading, but it's normalizing a position which is like, oh, well, I'd love to be that guy. And you can be that guy, but it's not betting on Maduro and his capture in a Black Hawk helicopter. It's about whether I can fix and rig content in this particular sports game, because you can bet on anything on these platforms. So therefore, I can set up my own event, I can rig the outcome, and I can then be an insider. A recent article I'd read in one of the weekend, I think it was in the New Yorker, one of the journalists there had basically said, look, prediction markets have changed the nature of engagement with gambling content, because you basically, the one way you make money on prediction market platforms is to follow the insider, follow the guy who has inside knowledge, bet behind him. That's how you make money. And if you can't work out who the insider is, the thing that you should maybe work out is that you are the sucker who's being dragged into betting a load of money on stuff that's probably not going to happen, or that you have no knowledge to bet smartly behind. So you shouldn't be doing this. But again, even using the word bet is kind of weird in America, because there's been so much put towards this as a form of trading. It's not gambling, it's trading. But everywhere else in the world is struggling with, what do we do about these products? Are they gambling? Are they diluting the money that's going to sports betting? Absolutely they are. We've proven from our work at GCI that these things are diluting the share that sports betting has. Now there's a dangerous thing here, which is it's really diluting what's going into legal sports betting. What's it doing to illegal sports betting? It's doing the same thing there too. It's diluting them too. And illegal sports betting noticed it years ago that prediction markets were doing this to them. And consequently, they did what? They joined them by basically scraping all the prediction market content and just saying they have prediction market bets, even when they aren't a prediction marketplace based on liquidity, the volume of users there. They just put the stuff up there and tell you that they are. And again, people tend to believe it. There's part of this which is, it would be really easy to criticize consumers and consumer behavior and say it's all your fault, you should make better decisions. We need to give people protected environments to work and live within and transact within. And we are not doing that online effectively. We're well aware of that through many, many forms of communication and risk issues that are going on in society right now. Within gambling, if you can control this, the most lucrative form of commercial content, if you can control it here, it gives you lessons for how you control things elsewhere. But the point here is consumers always have choices, and sometimes those choices are not ones they should be able to make, because consumers don't necessarily make great choices when they're being told a bunch of stuff that's changing their mind, but it's being changed by crooks. That's the problem.
Can you elaborate on what you mean consumers shouldn't be able to make those choices? Because that could come off as Big Brother to some people.
I'm not looking for censorship there, Ivan, just to be clear here. Consumers should be able to make the choices they want to make, okay? But when the choice is I can harm myself with illegal gambling content, I can lead to others harming themselves by sponsoring it and giving my money to this illegal gambling content and not getting paid when I win, making a decision on a game that is rigged, making a decision on a product that's not being run fairly. That's a choice a consumer shouldn't make because he wouldn't want to make it if he had perfect knowledge of how that product was being run. So if I'm offered a roulette table and I'm being told that I'll be paid X amount of money every time I win, and I think that game is being run the fair way it's run by a regulated gambling company, you're not being told everything. It's being brought to you by criminal organizations, crooks, who are basically just there to make money from you. So when you bet on the number 1 coming up on roulette and it keeps coming up with the numbers 7 and 36, it's not just bad luck. It's because they made sure you lost. If you knew that was a rigged game going into it, would you have played it? That's what I mean by consumers shouldn't be able to make those choices. It's a bad
Honestly,
decision.
why I've never touched online gambling, just because it's all like a digital script. They could so easily skew the probabilities.
That's
And honestly, I don't even trust the regulated ones either, just because it's so easy to tweak the code a little bit. Or like they checking under the hood. Like it's all so shady.
So regulated gaming has to be subject to oversight and control by other people, the third party being the regulator, the auditing that comes with it, okay? So if there is, I would happily say regulated gambling, when it's got the oversight, control, checks and balances, you can trust the products there. It would be the same as playing the game in a live dealer casino, for example, okay?
What does it mean to be regulated? Because there's many different jurisdictions and governments and entities that regulates.
So in your society, you need to be able to control what's going on in your society. You're living in America, you'll be subject to state-based gaming controls. So depending where you are, what's going on with the sports betting? Are these bets fair? Is there insider trading? On a roulette table, is this wheel being run according to a random number generator, the same way that a wheel is spun in a live dealer, in a live setting, a brick and mortar setting? Same way. So of course there's differing controls based on gameplay, fairness, probability, randomness checks, all these kind of things. Those controls are different around the world according to what regulated societies want, okay? But the difference between the regulated sector and the unregulated sector is vast, okay? Nobody is checking anything on the unregulated sector. Even when they say they have licensing in whatever offshore jurisdiction they've got it from, that's just to pay a tiny bit of tax to get a stamp on the window that can basically say we're regulated somewhere. But you're not regulated in the jurisdiction you're taking the money from, targeting the consumers in, okay? So having a license from some offshore island and then saying it gives you the right to come to Sweden or Germany or the United Kingdom or the United States to take money from those consumers, it's not the same thing, again. That license from some offshore jurisdiction, some tiny island in the South Pacific, doesn't allow you to come to America and then transact with its consumers, okay? Nobody's checking anything on that island, okay?
In the finance world, there are many companies that get like a legit regulation, like in Cyprus, where it's kind of legit. Like Cyprus is legit. It's easier than getting it in, the Netherlands or the UK. They get a regulation in Cyprus. It's a legit company. And they don't necessarily target countries like the US and Canada and the UK. But they also know that there are people from those countries that use their platform. And they happily take the money without getting registration in those countries just because it's like a hassle to get registration.
Yeah.
Is there like some sort of gray zone where there are these, gambling companies that are regulated in some jurisdictions and they just don't want to get regulated in, US because of how complicated it is?
Okay. So it's a really good point you're raising here. So is there a white market, a gray market, and a black market? The answer is no. There's just one marketplace, the marketplace in your jurisdiction. So in any jurisdiction, whether it was financial products or gambling products, your jurisdiction will be saying, the United States, for example, you need to be registered within the United States to offer this financial product. I'm sure there are people in other places in the world who basically got registration on some imaginary island in the Mediterranean, let's call it, okay? My imaginary island in the Mediterranean, I give out financial licensing, and I don't really say whether it's just for my imaginary island or if it's for many other places in the world. I say nothing about it because it's better to say nothing, because then my SEO optimization and my reach on social media goes much wider than I maybe intended to. Now everybody in the world can see my products and they can maybe engage with them. And I don't tell any of the people who give me their money for my financial product on my imaginary island that I may not pay them back if the thing happens that's supposed to happen, kind of thing. So I just take the money. So that's your example that you gave earlier of, they're not really registered here. Maybe they just don't want to get registered. Let's look at this in the hard lines of some reality, Ivan. Okay? If I'm a gaming company and I get a license for some offshore jurisdiction, do I care about the 10 people that live on that imaginary island? No, I don't care about those 10 people. Do I care about the 10 million that live in some European country or the 10 million that live in some US state? I really, really care about those people. I really care about their money. If having a license means I can get bank accounts and casino products supplied to me for my imaginary island customers, I'm going to get those deals done, aren't I? I'm going to get my imaginary island license, and I'm going to go with my imaginary island licensing, allowing me to have bank accounts and payment processing and game supplied and advertising deals. And now I'm going to find ways of getting my imaginary island brand over to all the people I want to appeal to in marketplaces that I'm not licensed to get people from. But I really like that money, so I'm going to take that.
How does it work in the EU? Because for some financial licenses, I think a Cyprus license, it not only applies to Cyprus, but it applies to like the broader EU economic zone or something like that. Is it separate for these gambling licenses where you have to do it every individual country?
So every individual country, so look, gaming is a specific product under EU law, because EU law generally has this principle of you basically have the free movement of goods and services. Gambling is not one of those goods and services, okay? Expressly in all of the laws, okay? So when people say to you, oh, we're allowed to do this because we have a license in X, Y, Z EU state, therefore we have a license for all EU states. No, you do not, okay? By law, okay? That's an absolutely accepted EU law. There is no free movement of goods and services on gambling, period, okay? There may be similar conditions, I don't know about those, on financial products, because generally you have a local regulator for financials as well as some EU-backed kind of the EU bloc looking at this as well. So I would say that just having the ability to say, well, I have a license somewhere, therefore I'm licensed everywhere, doesn't really hold in most places. Any condition of regulation is generally state jurisdiction specific. So when you start saying things like, well, I'm licensed somewhere, I don't need a license everywhere, it's like watching a cop movie and the guys, when you have a cop from Detroit who goes to Beverly Hills, like in Beverly Hills Cop, Eddie Murphy as Axel Foley in that movie is not allowed to just be like arresting people in Beverly Hills. You're out of jurisdiction. That's the point. You need to be specifically licensed for the jurisdiction you're targeting, taking revenue from.
So are these companies legally allowed, or not legally, but are they allowed to just steal from you? If, let's say a company is legally registered in Cyprus and I gamble in Miami, because that company is not registered in Miami, there's no registration, there's no license. Can I sue them being a Cyprus company gambling where I'm not supposed to gamble?
It's a good question. So let's not get into the financial area too much, but yes, that would be the point. So there's a whole bunch of these cases going through at the moment where basically in the EU, for example, Austrian customers who can only bet with an Austrian gambling monopoly run by the state through Casinos Austria, okay? That's the only people you can gamble with. During the internet era, obviously people found other things and they started gambling with those. Some of those things were based in Malta. Malta is another EU destination, and basically they said we have licensing in Malta, okay, for these companies. So people would see that and they made the same assumptions you made. Well, if they're licensed in Malta, that must mean the EU level licensing. Surely it does. So I'm going to gamble with these people. Now there's a whole bunch of court cases going against Maltese companies to basically say, you took money from me, the games weren't run fairly, your conditions are not the same as Austrian conditions, and I want my money back. So there's a whole bunch of these give me all my money back cases going through from Germany, from Austria, from other jurisdictions in the EU, against Malta particularly. And Malta's now passed a law saying that you can't come and claim that money back from us. We're going to protect the online gaming companies.
Wow. So the companies that are not registered in your state or country, they technically have a legal right not to pay you out because you're not playing within their jurisdiction.
Exactly. So they're saying we don't owe you the money back. You should have told us. You were definitely in Austria. Some of the companies have given money back voluntarily and said, we knew the customers were in Austria. We didn't think we needed to get a local Austrian license because we couldn't get one. There wasn't a system. There's no liberalized marketplace for licensing there. So there's a whole area there, which is, what do we want to do here? The big point here for you, Ivan, is really white, black, or gray market. And I always find using these colors is really unhelpful. So black market is a term that crime gave itself, to be clear here. Why do they call itself the black market? Black's a cool color. And if you say the something market, it makes it sound like it's distinct or separate or other. So I'm going to go to the black market because there's bargains there. There's benefits for me there. And don't tell anyone, it's on the down low. Keep it to yourself kind of thing. So it's like a secret that they've kind of made with you. It's like a deal. Again, the devil pulling this trick of making you believe that he doesn't really exist. He's your friend. Okay. So that's what crime did with the label of the black market. They gave themselves that name. Not us as individuals, not us as society, not us as high-minded, high-principled people saying we're judging you. No, we know what they are. They're crooks and thieves is what they are. But the black market label they gave themselves. So when we start using things like, is it black market? Is it white market? Is it gray market? What would gray market mean? It's like a parallel import then. I'm bringing things in without the permission of the society, without the payment of taxes, and I'm selling it to you cheaper because it's the same product, but it's not completely on the books, is it? So there's no grey market in gambling. You have a local license for New Jersey, for United Kingdom, for Germany, for France, or you do not. There's no such thing as, well, I can run some other, I'm licensed somewhere and I can sell you some gambling. No, you can't do that. Same with financial products. Okay. Same with medicine too. I can't be a doctor who's registered in, my imaginary island and then say, well, I'm going to come here and give you open heart surgery. You wouldn't say yes to that, would you?
Well, if they're like the best doctor in the UK, but they don't have a license to operate in the States, but they're like the best doctor in the UK, wouldn't that kind of give them credibility, even though they're technically not licensed for the US?
But it's still not licensed in your jurisdiction, so you have no comeback then, do you? You have no rights.
You have no security, because if that guy does surgery on you and your heart blows up, you have no safety. That's true.
Exactly. And also, what his conditions when he's operating outside of the regime he's licensed and approved within? What does he do? Is he on holiday? Is he drunk? Is he high when he's operating on me? Well, no conditions apply because I'm not registered here, so I don't need to obey the local medical rules. They don't mean anything to me. So that's the thing. Someone can play fast and loose with you when you're allowing them to play fast and loose with you, because you basically just went, well, I'm kind of one eye blind to that. I'm not willing to use full consumer judgment and make a good choice here, make a sound choice. I'm willing to make unsound choices because I'm kind of closing one eye to what you do. And I'm believing labels like grey market, believing labels like black market. Don't believe these labels because they're just labels that are put in front of you to make you close your eyes to the fact that you are being stolen from.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time, Vali. It's been a great conversation. I still don't think I'm going to do any of this online gambling, to be honest, whether it's, white or black.
It's nice to speak to somebody, Ivan, who comes at this from a place where you're not going to be convinced about the gambling. You're not going to be convinced as an influencer to take money from these people either, as somebody who's active on social media. You need to look at this as, if this is a product I'm looking to engage with, and look, everybody does want to engage with this at some point in their lives because human beings generally have. As long as we've had human beings on this planet, as since cavemen, we've been in two cavemen in a cave kind of looking at the flies on the wall and going, which one's going which way, left or right? Come on. What do you reckon? I'll bet your bones for it. So you'd be betting on this stuff. So human beings have an innate propensity to use these products, okay? Now, we need to make sound choices with those things, which quite often we don't do as consumers. But most of the gambling we're finding online, more than 80% of the content, is for unregulated gambling. We need to be pushing consumers to make better choices in this area by making sure that level of content is controlled. That's what we help achieve out there. Manage the mechanics of the marketplace, and the marketplace can then manage itself.
Incredible. When you're meeting with these government officials, can you invite me? I'll come with you. I'll represent.
If they let me, Ivan, I'd be happy to do that. Very nice question to ask. I will see what someone will say. I'm actually giving evidence this week in Parliament in the UK, so that might be available on the local TV in the UK. I think I'll send you some links when I know.
Awesome. I'm always down. Great. Well, it's been a pleasure. Make sure to subscribe and leave a like, comment, all that. I'll see you guys in the next one.
Thank you so much.